And sisters, you got your boy Freddie Coleman on with Keyshawn Johnson, Charlie Allno in for Stephen A. Max and Molly on First Take. Man, we got so many things to talk about. You got Chris Paul on his way to the NBA Finals for the first time in his legacy career, although he did not need to add to his legacy as far as I'm concerned. We're definitely going to dive into that. The Milwaukee Bucks, no Giannis in Game 5. Does that mean they have no chance of beating the Atlanta Hawks and get to the NBA Finals themselves? We're definitely going to dive into that. And college players about to have the best part-time jobs ever in the history of part-time jobs. Me, Keyshawn, Charlie, First Take starts now.
We come together even more so in these moments. This team is made up of toughness.
We have to realize we're trying to close out a series. We have to do whatever it takes.
Chris Paul once again from downtown. Booker uses the screen beautifully and flushes.
This is the deal. We don't give up.
Paul step back three-pointer, puts it in, and the foul.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good.
Damn good. I like it. Chris Paul feeling himself after that win. The drought is now over, well, at least for one team. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. I'm Charlie Arnold, joined here in studio by Keyshawn Johnson. We also got Freddie Coleman joining us from Bristol. And how you guys doing this morning? What a game last night.
Good, not bad. I mean, it was a great game, I would say. Chris Paul dropping 41 buckets on him, but at the same time, making sure that the young guns was cooking. I mean, you got to, it was, put it this way. Mm-hmm. I loved everything about it except Chris Paul's poster. And here's why I would say the post game I didn't like. You want to know why, Freddie?
Why?
Because I needed him to cry.
No,
give me the tears and the snot.
The man has cried for 16 years.
But I needed him to really squeeze them tears out for me because I'm so damn happy for him.
Well, I'm so damn happy that me and you were coordinated this morning. Look at this. Looking good here in studio. Freddie, wish you were here. But, guys, let's get to the game because after 16 years, Chris Paul finally in the NBA Finals. A stellar Game 6 performance by the Suns. CP3 on fire, dropping 41 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in the 130-103 win over the Clips. The 36-year-old guard was rolling in the third quarter, hitting 3 3-pointers, going on an 8-0 run to close it out by himself. And as I said, CP3 definitely feeling himself after that performance.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good. It's been a lot of work, man. A lot of work. Going to a new team, everybody staying the course. That team fight hard. T. Lue, unbelievable coach. Chauncey Billups, my big brother. So many ties to that team. But damn, this feels good.
What kind of mission were you on?
Don't lose. Don't lose mission. You know what I'm saying? Damn, that feel good. I wish my son and my family come down here. I don't know, man. It's just a lot of emotions, a lot of injuries. I was getting an MRI yesterday on my wrist. A lot of shit going on. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I just want to get over there with my team, Rach. Respect. Appreciate you.
He was done with that interview. Keyshawn, what did Chris Paul's performance prove?
Well, first of all, his leadership, right? He comes over from OKC, and you didn't really know. You're like, okay, the Suns were 8-0 in the bubble. What leadership could he bring? And then you look up, and they study just chipping along as the season goes. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, this team is for real. So you now have to push out everything and all the doubt in your mind out the way. And now he's a little bit older. So you're like, well, can Chris Paul do some things? Now playoff time comes. He hurts his shoulder. That becomes problematic. He stays in the game. They knock down the Lakers. They take care of business against the Lakers. And then they move forward. And now you look up and he's in the finals. When you talk about Chris Paul, you can't talk about him without saying, but he has yet to get to a final. Now you can. And now the conversation is, can he win a final to go along with everything else that he's done as in his NBA career? He's been nothing but a leader, whether it's on or off the court. And so you can tell based on the 2 games he missed that he led this team prior to missing those 2 games because they took whatever little bit that he gave them and applied it to be able to go up 2-0. And when they went up 2-0 and he came back in that first game and things was a little bit slow and people was questioning whether or not it was the right mix and chemistry at that point in time. And now you can see why he got back on the floor, dropping 41 points on their head and getting out of there against the team that he used to play for. So I'm sure it was bittersweet, but he still got to give me them tears.
Well, he's not going to cry. He's a damn good number one, Keyshawn. So you may want those tears, my brother, but you're not going to get them with all 123 postseason games he finally gets to the NBA Finals. Two things. Number one, State Farm premiums are going to go up because of what Chris Paul's able to do, getting his team to the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. So that's number one. But number two, his legacy didn't need to be proved anything to me, and here's why. Chris Paul's always been that kind of guy that people have always said, okay, does he have too much of an edge? Is he too much of a leader? Does he have too much of the basketball? Does he hog it the whole 9 yards? I'm thinking, well, you're one of the greatest point guards of all time. Things are going to be a lot better when the ball is going to be in his hands. And what did he do? He closed out the Denver Nuggets by closing out in that series, by winning 4 in a row against that team. And then when they had to have it last night, it's one thing to have 41. You put a 41 burger against the Clippers, but you go 7 of 8 from the three-point line. You also have no turnovers in 35 minutes of action when you control everything. They tried everything possible to stop you. And I can't even imagine, Charlie and Keyshawn, what the narrative would have sounded like if they did not win this series, because I firmly believe if they did not win Game 6 last night, I could see the Phoenix Suns losing in 7 because that pressure would have been immense. I don't know if they've been able to handle it very well. And for the first time, the Clippers would not have to worry about pressure being on them when it comes to a playoff series because everybody was waiting for that team to clip, and they didn't do it. They fought hard. So for me, his performance doesn't have to prove anything to me. He's been a top 5 point guard on my list all time in the history of the NBA. But I'm glad that he was able to get through and break through, Key and Charlie, because if he didn't, if they had lost a 3-1 lead to his former team, I can't even imagine what that narrative would have sounded like next to people saying, yep, that's why Chris Paul can never do it. He was never able to do it because he had a 3-1 lead with a team better than the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, and they were not able to get the NBA Finals with everything on their side in this series.
Well, you should never worry about the narrative as a professional player because everybody's got something to say. I think his body of work speaks for itself. There's no question about it. That's one of the reasons Chris Paul said, don't even talk to me about 3-1 because we have business to finish. And so when you look at it, he was able to deliver the goods in the brightest moments. Go to a few games.
The sunniest moments, if you will.
Or the sunniest moments, if that's a good one there, Charlie. If you look at it, though, the big-time players in situations, not all finished the deal. But when Kevin Durant's back was against the wall, he basically came out when he was the Lone Ranger and dropped 40-plus on their head, in Milwaukee's head. When you think about Paul George, everybody was talking negative about him. PG didn't have Kawhi. He came out and did his work and dropped 40. I mean, when we start to look at that sort of thing with veteran players that know what it will take to get things done, Chris Paul did it again last night. Okay, down the stretch, the Clippers closed the gap, I think, to about 7 points. He turned on the gas. He had 14 of the 16 points in that stretch. That shows you leadership. He look what he did for DeAndre Ayton since coming over from OKC. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Ayton gave him credit about him being able to get him to play a certain way. So it's like this is more to me than just basketball legacy on and off the court. You made a joke about State Farm. That's important. Those little bitty things are so important in professional sports. What are you on and off the court? What are you in your community? And he's been nothing but the best.
Keyshawn, I'll echo this standpoint, what you had to say from when it comes to Chris Paul this way. I think people seem to forget how many times he's had those clutch kind of moments when he played the Houston Rockets. They didn't get the NBA Finals, and everybody pointed the finger at him saying it was your fault. And everybody was saying, well, wait a minute. The reason that you were even in competition with Golden State was when Chris Paul was going off, they couldn't guard him. They had a hard time guarding him. And then when he got injured, they weren't the same basketball team. But they blamed him for that. When things didn't go well with the Clippers, he was there for 6 years. When things went haywire at the end, plenty of people pointed the finger at him thinking, well, the reason you were competitive and people even talking about you in that way was because of what Chris Paul brought to the table. People forgot about that, or they wanted to forget about that, because there are plenty of people out there that did not want to see Chris Paul ever get to the NBA Finals. Even last night, when he made Patrick Beverley give him the two-hand shove because Patrick Beverley pulled that punk move because he was so frustrated that Chris Paul gave him that business. He gave him that church in the fourth quarter, and there was nothing that Patrick Beverley could do about it, and he had no other recourse but to get in touch with his inner bouncer at the end of the night, throwing people out of the club because Chris Paul's putting it on him. So Chris Paul's able to do that to Patrick Beverley because so many people did not want Chris Paul to get to the NBA Finals. They wanted to have that conversation. Yeah, great point guard, great player, can never get it done in key moments. He had done that before. It shouldn't have taken last night for people to remember how many clutch moments Chris Paul's had in his NBA career, even though this performance finally put him over the top in terms of getting the NBA Finals for the first time in his Hall of Fame career.
I wonder what he said to Patrick
I didn't
Beverley.
look like he said anything. I think Patrick Beverley was just salty.
No, he said something. He said something. I'm gonna ask CP3 when I see him. What did you say?
Please ask.
You know what it is? He says something that when you say you're at a barbecue and it's a relative you don't like, and you mention something, then they throw potato salad at you. That was along those lines from Chris Paul. He said something that Patrick Beverley did not want to get past because he was right. Chris Paul threw facts in his face, and Patrick Beverley couldn't handle it.
Well, look, Chris Paul is unbothered at this point because right now the Suns are the first team in history to miss the postseason for the past 10 seasons and then make the NBA Finals. And not only that, but of course, this is Chris Paul's first Finals appearance in his career. But the drought does continue for the Clippers. It now stands at 51 years of missing the NBA Finals. So, Freddie, what is the key for the Clippers title run next season?
Well, Keyshawn will tell you more than ever before, Charlie and Keyshawn, it's a second year when it comes to NBA championships and opportunity windows. It's no longer year to year, game to game, it's second to second. But if you're going to be the Clippers, it's not so much about Kawhi Leonard coming back. That's key. But I think the most important thing for them to be a championship team or contend next year is Ty Lue, their head coach. Guys want to play for that guy. Guys understand that he's always going to have their back. And yes, you need talent. But he has shown the ability not only to coach talented players, but coach players up. What Monty Williams was able to do in Phoenix, look what Ty Lue did for Reggie Jackson. Look what he did for Marcus Morris. Even Boogie Cousins was getting running. He played well in the last couple of games for the Los Angeles Clippers. They don't do this, in my opinion, if Doc Rivers is still the head coach. And that's not trying to slight Doc Rivers. It's just that certain guys have a better feel for a certain team and a certain way to coach players, especially with that organization. And yeah, you can't miss Kawhi Leonard and say, yeah, we're going to miss the 30 points and 57% that he shot from each game. Yeah, those things are going to happen. We're going to miss that. But they were that close to scaring the Phoenix Suns and maybe getting the NBA Finals. To me, that's the most important key. Because if you're the Clippers, you want to make sure that this opportunity is there, and you got to grab and hold on to it like your owner Steve Ballmer did to his friend's legs last night in that ball game. You got to do the same thing if you're the Clippers. And if you're going to do that, you have the right coach in Ty Lue, that guys like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and even though Patrick barely had that move, they want to go through a wall for that guy. To me, that's the most important aspect if the Clippers are going to do this again next year, when each and every year it's a second-by-second situation when it comes to competing and winning championships, no matter what sport it is.
They got to run it back. They got to run it back with Ty Lue, Kawhi Leonard, PG. Maybe there's some tweaks along the lines of a couple role-type players, but that's the mindset. First of all, you got to get healthy. Then you got to convince Kawhi that this is about the long term. We did everything we needed to do. We got rid of the coach and Doc Rivers. We went out and got Paul George. We did everything. Now we need to just run it back, stay healthy, and play it up. Because when you're missing somebody like a Kawhi Leonard in your lineup, chances are it's gonna be tough. In professional basketball, you need 2 or 3 guys. And when you got one guy out there in Paul George and a bunch of role players that can assist along the way, and you going up against juggernauts in terms of DeAndre Ayton, Booker, Chris Paul, that's hard to beat. That's so hard to beat, and I think they know that. And I think they've seen that. It was unfortunate what happened in the situation because I'm sure a lot of Clipper fans certainly thought that the Clippers were on their way, especially since they avoided the Lakers. That's just a little shot at the Clippers for avoiding the Lakers, even though the Lakers didn't advance as far as the Clippers did. So you're building onto something. Don't all of a sudden backtrack by doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Just get healthy, run it back, convince Kawhi he needs to be there long term and not take his talents to South Beach or no other city.
How much that bothered you, Key, that you as a Lakers fan, the Clippers advanced and they were that close to getting the NBA Finals?
No, it
doesn't bother you?
Good for them. I'm glad that they got out of the second round. Hats off to you.
Keyshawn, wow. That could have been you courtside who Steve Ballmer would have grabbed your leg.
I'm not, Charlie, I'm from LA. And I have not ever been to a Clippers game at Staples Center. I went to Clipper games at the Sports Arena, but not since they've been in the Staples Center building, so I wouldn't have been there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. So that would not have been you. No chance. No. All right, guys, well, let's move on to the East because we have a winner in the West. The East, though, the series tied up at 2 apiece. Game 5 tipping off in Milwaukee tonight. The Hawks able to pull it off Tuesday without Trae Young. Injuries, though, do remain the focus tonight. Trae Young, Clint Capella, both listed as questionable for the Hawks. Meanwhile, Giannis is listed as doubtful for the Bucks. So, Keyshawn, who is the most important player in Game 5 tonight?
I think it's Lemon Pepper Lou Williams. I think that is the most important guy, especially if Trae Young can't go or Trae Young is hobbled to a degree. I think Lou Williams came out, started that game, did a terrific job, dropping 20-plus points on the Bucks. If he can continue to do that, I think a lot of us have seen him in a secondary role as coming off the bench, but now as a starter, he can do the same things he was doing coming off the bench, only he's a starter. It's very important because he knows how to play. He's a high-volume scorer. He plays defense at times, but scoring is so important. Getting half of what Trae Young can get you goes a long ways. That's why he's the most important player for me.
Definitely for Atlanta, Key, but I'm going to say the most important player in Game 5 is not Lou Williams, although I love the lemon pepper reference, well done by you. It's not Chris Middleton, who has to step up in the absence of Giannis Antetokounmpo. To me, it's got to be Brook Lopez. You can't be big like a statue and play like a statue like we saw from him in Game 4. And you can say that about the whole Bucks team, but Trae Young's not out there. That's a chance to go for the kill, and they never had the lead in that game. If you're Brook Lopez, you have the ability, not just shooting threes, but scoring inside and taking that pressure off Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Why are you not doing that if you're Brook Lopez? You have ability. You don't need to just stand out there and jack up threes all the time. That should come within the offense. But when you post up, there's nobody out there that should have the ability to guard you and also rim protect, like we've seen from him at times. I expect Chris Middleton is going to be terrific. I don't care who's guarding him. But if you're Brook Lopez, this is your chance to say, hey, I'm getting a double-double tonight. They can't stop me on the inside. I'm not just going to stand out there and take the easy way out and make threes. If he has any kind of force with his height and his ability to go inside and put fouls on Clint Capella and the interior of that line of the Atlanta Hawks, he makes things a lot easier for Chris Middleton and for his coach, Mike Budenholzer. Do I expect that he's going to do that? I have my doubts about that because I've seen Brook Lopez just stay out there and wait for the basketball. Dude, you got to demand the basketball. You got to be that important player to be that Robin to the Batman that's going to be Chris Middleton. If you don't do that, then you're expecting other people to do that. Then that says a lot about you, Brook Lopez, and it doesn't say anything good if you take a step back instead of taking a step forward when I know you have the capability and the ability to do that in an important game in a Game 5 for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Bogdanovich is there along the way as well as Lou Williams. So he's healthy now. His high volume shooting, spreading the floor, that gives them all sorts of problems on the Bucks end. Plus, when you think about Milwaukee and Coach Bud and some of the things and adjustments he's been able to not make for Milwaukee is problematic too. So he becomes an important part of what could potentially take place tonight from a coaching standpoint. Can you somehow figure out how to get Drew Holiday involved? Can Drew Holiday come up to the party and account for that $100+ million that they gave him to be the star player since coming over from New Orleans? That's an issue that have been for the Bucks. Let's see where that goes as an important player in this game tonight.
And that's why with Coach Bud, that's why I picked the Hawks to win in 6 before the series got started, because I didn't trust him that if things got tight, that he would be able to dial up the right play or have the right kind of motivation. Because look at the guy on the other side, Nate McMillan. They knew they were not going to have Trae Young in Game 4, and those guys came out there ready to fight and win. And Coach Budenholzer and Milwaukee took a step back. Now you're not going to have Giannis in Game 5. Does anybody inside and outside of Milwaukee trust that Coach Budenholzer is going to have the right kind of plays and the right kind of mindset to help your basketball team? Until I actually see that, I'm not buying it. And that's why before the series got started, I picked the Hawks to win in 6. I trusted Nate McMillan, what he's been able to do taking over this franchise in the middle of the year. And I give the Hawks a lot of credit, Key and Charlie. They did not keep a mistake in the building with Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce is a nice guy, but when you're 14-20, and players don't want to play for you, at a certain point you can't keep that mistake in the building. They bring in Nate McMillan, which makes the Pacers look foolish because they made him a scapegoat last year, and now they're on another coach after Nate McMillan. He had that team always prepared and always ready with next man up. They lost Trae Young, no problem. They win game 4. They lose DeAndre Hunter in the series before. They beat Philadelphia to get to this point. So that's why I didn't trust Mike Budenholzer, because I know what Nate McMillan can do. I have not seen it from Mike Budenholzer unless things are so much in his favor being the front runner. When things are tight and that pressure is there, it seems that he's too nice of a guy to have people have trust in him in a tight situation when it comes to his coaching acumen.
The great thing about it for Milwaukee is they're at home. The home crowd can get into it. Chris Middleton has struggled on the road and shooting the ball in the playoffs. He's done a terrific job at home.
He did great in game 3.
Hopefully, like you said, Charlie, game 3, he can duplicate that tonight in game 5 and then see where they go from there.
Well, actually, the only player on the Bucks squad to consistently perform well at home this series so far has been Drew Holiday. He had 55 points in the first 2 games in Milwaukee. So we'll see what happens there. Guys, let's keep it rolling. We have a lot more to get to. Reggie Bush taking to Twitter last night to voice his feelings on the NCAA ruling. How much could he have earned at USC? Do you even want to know? Well, guess what? We're going to tell you coming up. Plus, some college basketball legends would have gotten paid in their day if this rule was in place. Who would have made the most? The guys debate that coming up as First Take rolls on.